The Senior Rehab podcast is sponsored by Health IQ. Health IQ is a special rate life insurance company for health-conscious people like you and me. If you're in the market for life insurance to have peace of mind and to protect your family, I'd highly recommend checking out this company. They are the only life insurance company to use data to leverage lower life insurance rates for active individuals. So the result is that 56% of Health IQ customers save between 4 to 33% on their life insurance premiums, which can definitely add up to big savings over time. To find out more information, just go to healthiq.com/SRP to support the show and to get your free quote. Hit me!
This is a Senior Rehab podcast, the podcast for rehab clinicians that want to better serve older adults.
All right. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Senior Rehab podcast, and thank you for the download. This week's episode, I am joined by my good friend, Lora Miller. She is a coworker, but she's also a mother of 2 sons and grandmother of 4. Yes. She's been a PTA for over 30 years, has worked in many venues. Home health is definitely her niche. She became an RN over 6 years ago because she wanted to be able to do more for people. She wanted to make her own plan of care for patients and be able to debride wounds. But they took that away from PTAs about 10 years ago. So, and now you're PTA that we work together.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I put on the description, I put we're having an evening tea, but we're having water and beer. Yeah. So cheers to that.
Water. He's got beer.
Clink. Okay. All right. So that was kind of the quick and dirty of your career, but just let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
So where were you when you said, I want to be a PTA, and why did you want to become a PTA?
Well, I actually wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a physiatrist. And as I learned more about it, I wanted to be a DO instead of MD. But life things got in the way. And so I did not graduate high school. I got married at 16 and had my first child at 17. So I got my GED and applied for PTA school because I liked physical therapy. Yeah. Mainly because my first introduction to physical therapy was when I got ran over by a car when I was 10. A station wagon ran over my pelvis, and they told me I'd never walk again. And I was 10 years old. And so I got up to the trapeze bar there and climbed up got a hold of the bar and started walking myself across the bed.
Where was this?
Oh, this was in Illinois. I think St. Francis Hospital in Illinois.
All right.
And the nurse caught me, and she was very scared. I remember her screaming, and she ran out of the room. Why she didn't tell me to lay down, I don't know, but she ran out of the room. And next thing you know, this redheaded physical therapist came in with a walker. And they decided they'd go ahead and let me try walking since I decided I wanted to do that anyway. Yeah. And from there, I got a good taste of what physical therapy was about. And I thought, this is great. Rather than being a pill for medicine, you're a human body mechanic. And that's the way I saw it. And I thought, oh, that is great. And so as time went on, I wanted to be a physiatrist and things like that. But anyway, so when the shoe factory I was working in closed down, I was a dislocated worker. And through the Job Training Partnership Act, I was able to go to school for 2 years. Okay. And I had a lower, like somehow they helped pay it. Plus I had a bunch of loans. I remember I had a college foundation loan I paid for 10 years. Oh, wow. But, and the sob story, I'm a single mother of 2 children. And the closest schools that I could go to for physical therapy was in Charlotte, and they had the PT assistant program. Yeah. And so I drove 100 miles one way to school and 100 miles back, dropped my kids off at daycare at 6:30 in the morning, picked them up at 6:30 at night. Really? And I had initially had to take some prerequisite courses, of course, since I was a dropout. And so it took me 3.5 years to get an associate degree.
So you were doing that commute?
Yeah.
For 3.5 years?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. but it was a lot of good study time.
Yeah.
I did have a folder with like, okay, there's the origin, insertion, and innervation of this muscle, and pages of each thing, which
That's wild.
makes me think of when I graduated PT assistant school, our kinesiology teacher said, "You're rowing a boat." There was one question. "You're rowing a boat across Lake Norman. Name the origin, insertion, and innervation of every muscle you're using." So the first thing I wrote was, "My face is not moving." And I passed
All
somehow.
right. That's incredible. So when you were going through, so you went through PTA school, you got through it remarkably. What did you want to do once you got out, and what did you end up doing?
Well, what I ended up doing is right around the time I graduated PT assistant school, I had also been working some as a PT tech,
Okay.
which I had done that quite a bit. I actually volunteered when I was 15 in a physical therapy department.
What setting?
It was, general hospital setting, Palos Park, Illinois. And I loved physical therapy then. I remembered my first case was a baby that had been burned from pulling the steam vaporizer on themselves. And we had to put that poor
Wow.
baby in the whirlpool. And I can still see that baby right now. That
Yeah.
was left a big impression on me. But I think that was my start of love for wound care. But anyway, when my first job, I had gotten married to a physical therapist right after I graduated
Okay.
physical therapy school.
All right.
And he was a wonderful man and a wonderful therapist. And so I was working some as his tech part-time, and that's how I met him. And then when I graduated physical therapy school, we got married. So we ended up, I was doing some home health at first, and then we moved to West Jefferson, North Carolina, and we moved to his parents' former house, which his dad was a doctor, and the
Okay.
front end of the house had been set up for his doctor's office.
Oh,
So we
wow.
made that our physical therapy clinic.
Huh.
So we had our own physical therapy clinic, and we did home health in order to eat
Wow.
as we built it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that marriage dissolved. But I've mostly worked in home health, but
Yeah.
I did 5.5 years as a traveler
Okay.
in the state of Kentucky, which I did hospitals, nursing homes, outpatient clinics, all of it, whatever they needed. And I really liked that job. And one of the things I liked about it the most was I met so many different therapists and therapist assistants and could learn so much from them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just such a good resource. So many people with so many opinions. You learn to take what's
Yeah.
leave the rest. But I had a lot of opportunity because of that job.
Yeah, that's cool. So you had that set up. You did home health. You did some travel work. What were you practicing wound care
Yes.
throughout? So that was your niche, kind of the
Yeah.
whole time.
I became a PT assistant in the days where everything went in the whirlpool, and the therapist debrided it. And any wound that was complicated, more than a stage 2, more than full thickness, physical therapy took care of, not nursing.
Really?
Yes.
And that was standard.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That was. And then when they said PT assistants can't debride anymore, after I'd been doing it 20 years, I got kind of upset.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, and I also, I think another reason I became an RN, besides what you mentioned, was, the thing about making your own plan of care. That was something I really enjoyed doing, but then I found out how laborious it is. So as an RN, and we'll get into that with other questions, because the RN start of care is different than the PT start of care, which we will talk about.
Yeah, I think my face would melt if I saw a nursing start of care compared to the PT start of care. So now we'll just fast forward to now. So we're doing home health.
Yep.
I've said this at least a handful of times. You're the best PTA I've worked with.
Aw.
For sure. I'll talk into the camera or the microphone. So Lora has such a unique background, being the PTA for so long, and then going back to school to be an RN, and just that perspective that you've saved my butt several times especially from like the medical side of things. You're just very, you really dig deep. You don't just let things slide by. You address potential problems. Yeah, so I'm really grateful for that. I know a lot of the other PTs would echo that. Jeff Musgrave being another one. Jeff was a guest on the podcast as well. So how take me through like a day in home health for you, because you have this PTA hat. That's kind of like your role for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have this nursing background. You're fresh out of your RN degree. So how, like, what's your perspective going into all these visits? Because from what I can tell, it's very different from a typical like PTA that's going in to do a home health visit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, when you become an RN case manager in home health, you start thinking that way. I mean, there's always that critical thinking going on, and you're looking at medications. And one of the most important, I think the most important thing an RN can do, an LPN nursing can do, is to make sure the patients are taking the right medicine, the right time. If they're struggling to get their medicine, get the social worker and help them get their medicine. The medication is so many patients, their medicines are wrong, especially if they've been in the hospital or a nursing home. They'll change their medicines and they'll come home and they're all confused.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to take this twice a day? They upped it to 3 times a day, but they took the other thing away. They took the yellow pill, but now I'm making a red pill. That's So it's just really important to make sure that those medications are being taken correctly, and that they have them.
Yeah. I struggle with that. Oh, thank goodness. My mother's watching right now, by the way.
Hi, Mom.
So we've got lots of questions. Let me pull these up. We got some listener questions, which I think is going to really encompass a lot of things that we want to talk about, given your unique, both hats that you wear. So let's go with the first question. So Dale Avers, if there's a Mount Rushmore of geriatric PT, she would be on it. She's amazing. She's written a lot of really good articles with the white paper on strength training for older adults. She's awesome. But she asked you, what do you wish PTs knew?
I wish that physical therapists knew about PT assistants. Is that mainly what she's saying? Or just
say what do you wish? Let's say I'm a new PT coming on board with the company. What do you want me to know about what you can do? And not necessarily you, Lora Miller, being PTA RN, but I think more of like the PTA. Perspective. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm under the impression that PTs don't realize the training that PTAs get. And I think a lot of it is our fault, our PTA's fault. Over the 30 years, I've met plenty of physical therapist assistants who just do what they need to do to get by, do the same exercises over and over and over. And that has made it so PTs think that's all we do. And it's our own fault. We need to bump up our game. We're better than that, So I think PTs need to know that we can do any treatment, and we can think critically about how far to go and what to do and things like that, and watch the patient and know, okay, they're getting a little too short of breath, those kind of things. We understand all those things. We got all the anatomy, we got all the physiology, we got all that stuff. That we know this, but I think that when you work with the PT-PTA relationship, which we had talked about, I think when you first get together, you need to sit down with each other. That PT and that PT assistant need to sit down with each other. So you can both learn each other's backgrounds. And what you learn, just like a job interview, what I excel at and what I'm not so good at, what I'd like to get better at, I see my physical therapist that's over my patient, I see them as the resource, the kind of all-knowing one. I know. But, I just, you have so much more knowledge and education than I do. I have the experience, but you got a lot more knowledge and education. So I think you need to work together so that you can utilize both of that. And you can't do it unless you start out right, where you get to know each other at first up front and say, hey, I'm really good at this. I like this kind of patient. I don't like that kind of patient. Or I'm not good with that kind of patient.
Yeah.
And maybe you'd like to get better with that kind of patient,
Mm.
and you might be good at strokes and I'm not, so you can teach me as we go.
Yeah.
I think you need that kind of open relationship, and you don't see that very much.
Yeah. Especially in home health.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I do like about where we're working, which I'm not going to now, but the weekly case conference, that's super helpful because you have those conversations. But now, because I'm not going to them, like we have a new PTA, and I've just emailed him. I haven't got to meet him, and we've emailed back and forth about his background and whatnot. But there's only so much you can coordinate over email. Yeah, the communication is huge.
I think you need to meet.
Yeah, what in terms of communication, what are some of your frustrations like that you've experienced? Not necessarily where we're working at now, but just in general.
Well, I'm working in an ideal situation with the most wonderful people now. So I'll go back to before us.
I'll send this to our director.
Before us, before Kindred. I actually had a physical therapist that I worked with, and he would keep all of the total hips and total knees, and he would give me the people with all the comorbidities and the family issues and the medication struggles and all that stuff. And at first, it made me mad because he had more productivity than I did because he could get in and out pretty fast. I couldn't. But later on in life, I met up with him again, and I said, you made me a better therapist because I had to think harder. I had to work harder to try to figure out how to get these people better within all these obstacles they had in their lives,
Yeah.
So.
Did you say that in like a real snarky way? Like,
I tried
up yours,
not
buddy.
to, but he probably knew.
That's funny. Communication. That's a tough one. How do you feel about texting? Is texting okay? I'm asking personal questions now.
Oh, yeah. I don't like texting anything that has a patient's name in it.
Right.
That I don't do. But like if I called you or I sent you an email and I said I'm gonna go see this person, blah blah blah, I might text you. Well, she was only able to do this or that, but I don't say her name. And I think as long as we do that, that's cool.
Yeah. I think I have a bad habit of knowing what to communicate over which medium. Because like some things I'll email, some things I'll call, some things I'll text. Yeah. And it's just kind of random instead of like, I don't know, I just feel like I should be more diligent with, if it's something like this, then I need to text, or something like this, I need to email.
Yeah. Well, I think if you need to know right away, texting is the way to go. Yeah. And you could even say, call me. I need to know about somebody's blah, 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 whatever, Yeah. And then I would know to call you right away because you're there with that patient. You need an answer now. Otherwise, email is great because it's secure. Yeah. And I am more an visual learner than I am auditory. I don't remember as much of what I heard, but I remember more of what I've read. So even in school, I wrote things down when I didn't need to, just so I could help me remember them. So I like the email rather than the phone calls most of the time, because that way I can go back and look, what did he say he needed me to do here? I've got that I can look back to.
I'll remember that. Joe Daniels is watching right now.
Oh, Joe! Hey, Joe! Was talking the other day on there about the status quo people that don't have any passion. Yeah. I was like, yeah, Joe.
He's good for that. He's good for lighting a fire under people's rear end. And that's one thing that, I'm really impressed with you, just working with you. Is that, you're not just coasting through the day. There's lots of days where I feel I'm coasting and just kind of checking in, checking out. But then I think about, Laura's seeing this person. So I got to be cognizant of that because you're coming in right behind me. So Dale asked, what does she wish PTs knew? And then Lisa Doty, she said, what does Laura think RNs need to know about therapy, particularly in home health? Some of our referrals from skilled nursing are inappropriate, while I also believe that there are some referrals that get missed. So what do you think RNs need to know about therapy?
I think RNs need to know that if that patient has any deficit in mobility, which most likely they do if they're home health, they have any deficit in mobility, they need a therapy evaluation. Then let the therapist decide if this person has the potential to do better and how hard you can work with them or whatever. Let the therapist decide, but let that PT do that evaluation, because the PT knows better than the nurse if they can help them or not.
Yeah.
I don't think an RN has the right to make that decision.
Yeah.
I think they need to let the therapist evaluate and make the decision.
Okay. So what did you learn, whether in school or just, working in home health as an RN, what did you learn in terms of how to make that decision? So do you just say, oh, well, they, got, 16 seconds on their tug, they probably need PT, or they scored, 3s and 4s on their MOO questions, they probably need PT. Like what do they tell you in terms of like when you need to refer to PT?
Yeah. Well, they didn't tell me anything because they probably figured I knew. Because they probably had a lot more physical therapy referrals on patients that I admitted than they might have by someone else, just because I know what we can do and what we're capable of. So I'm always one that pushes for therapy. And the thing is, in home health, that's really where they make their money. So in home health, they want patients to have therapy.
Yeah.
You don't make much off a nursing visit.
Yeah. That explains a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So let's flip that question. What do PTs need to know about nursing?
Okay.
Because I feel like the same could be said with there's probably some referrals for skilled nursing that are inappropriate, or there's a lot of times where I should be, getting nursing in. So what do we need to know about nursing?
When you're doing that medication list, if you see any problem, they say they have any problem, they're missing any medicines, they need nursing in there. They need nursing to work on their medications. That's one of the biggest reasons why people go back in the hospital, their diseases worsen, because they're not taking their medications right. That is the nurse's responsibility to make sure that they're taking their medications right. So, say that again. What was the question?
That you answered it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just like that's what we need. We need to know that. And that's almost every patient. Honestly.
Yeah.
At least around here, we're seeing medication lists that are, 20 to 30, easy.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
I worked with a doctor back in the mountains in North Carolina when I was going to physical therapy school, and he said if they're taking more than 8, and that includes vitamins, of anything, if they're taking more than 8, they're taking too much.
Huh? Yeah.
It's like, man, I wish I had this doctor seeing a bunch of my patients.
Right. Yeah. One of the I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's in terms of like a falls risk algorithm, 4 more medications in it, bumps up their fall risk. So big deal. Okay, so Hannah Holt, she asks, what are some strategies to ease communication between fresh PT/new grads and more experienced PTAs? That's us right there.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about,
Yeah.
getting that communication up front first.
Yeah.
Sitting down with each other and saying, okay, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, this is what I need your help with, this is what I don't need you to worry about me with.
Yeah.
Just to get to know each other, get to know that background a little bit, because I think new grad PTs are worried about, the PT assistant messes up, it's on my license. And I think that's their biggest fear as a new grad. I don't know, because I've never been a new grad PT, but I think that's probably their biggest fear, because I can relate it to the RN LPN.
Yeah.
And so when I'm case managing a patient and I have an LPN that's doing the bulk of the nursing visits, I'm looking at that. I'm watching those visits. I'm reading those notes. I'm making sure that everything's going the way it's supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Until I get to know that LPN is doing the right things.
Yeah.
And then I learn I don't have to worry about her so much.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, to get to know each other, strengths and weaknesses, and talk to each other face to face.
Yeah. I think too, when we think of clinicians that we enjoy working with or effective clinicians, I feel like the letters behind their name is only one factor in that. You got experience, personality, all those things. And so just to think, we have a PT, DPT coming in that's right out of school, they're going to be awesome, or no, X, Y, and Z, like that's not necessarily the case.
No.
There's so much variability in our education that yeah, we have a lot of variability in what we produce, whether it's PT or PTA. So I think, yeah, just looking beyond the credentials,
Yeah.
honestly, that's something I think we need to learn for sure. Because just because I see like, oh, PTA, they probably don't know this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not the case whatsoever. Especially with you, just having so much experience going to nursing school. Like, my gosh, if I just looked at a PTA, that would not demonstrate just the expertise that you have, as a clinician.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but it is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
It's intimidating. I've said this before, but it is like.
See, and I
you've
don't
been doing this.
understand it. You're so smart.
Well, no, you've been doing this for so long and
Yeah.
just seen a lot. You've worked with a bunch of PTs, and I'm relatively like new to the setting, and yeah, it's just a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we talked about Jeff.
Yeah.
So for those listening, Jeff is he's not rehab director, team lead, something like that.
He's called a team lead. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing awesome stuff. Sorry, I got sidetracked trying to look. Troy said something here, but I can't read it. But what'd you say? He has a lot of responsibility, but not
the authority.
But not the authority because he's relatively new. Like the guy, I mean, you all heard the podcast. I mean, he is not. He's pretty fresh to home health, and he's done so awesome that he, is now the team lead,
Yeah.
and so he's got the responsibility, but not the authority. And that's kind of how I feel. How I definitely felt starting here, working with you. But then you communicate and things get better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think I love that this company does the ride-alongs like
Oh
they do.
yeah.
And they have
That's
such
huge.
a good orientation process, and they really give you time to get to know each other. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me uncross my legs here. Let's see what Troy has to say.
Okay.
You are late to the party, Troy. Lots of love for our home health PTA. So he's in leadership as well in home health. Troy, he's a good people. So yeah, he's got a lot of love for the PTAs. Troy's awesome.
Well, something interesting that I did after I became an RN, which I didn't have enough experience to take those positions, but I became a senior clinical manager for a home health agency in Louisville, and the director resigned, and they moved me up to the director of professional services. So I had like 500 patients, 6 teams, Louisville parent office.
Shiza.
Yeah. So there was a big learning curve there. And then I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire and became a director of nursing in a nursing home that had a 42-bed subacute rehab unit. And then I almost lost my mind.
Yeah.
But it was such a joy to be in that building with other therapists.
Yeah.
Even though I was the director of nursing and I had a lot of headaches I had to worry about juggling.
Yeah.
It was nice because I could relate to the therapist and I could talk to them.
Yeah.
And they would listen, they listened, and it's like, I saw this lady and she's sitting kind of slumped. Can we do something to position her better, And they realized I was paying attention to those things and they started doing better.
Yeah. What so we haven't mentioned that yet, that you have management experience. What do you wish employees knew about those that are in managerial roles? So like Troy, for example, like he's leading people. Jeff is leading people. You've led people. Michelle, our branch director, is leading people. What do you wish field staff knew about kind of, what you have to go through?
Well, I had worked for another home health agency after those managerial jobs before this job. And the director there said to me, well, I'm worried that because you've had positions same as mine, even higher than mine, that you might undermine me. And I'd known this woman for many years. And I said, if anything, I got your back better than anybody out in the field because I know what you're dealing with. They'll sit there and say, oh, yeah, she's just sitting there behind her, playing behind her computer. I know you ain't playing.
Yeah.
I know what you got on your plate. You're juggling clinical, operations, finances. There's so much going on behind the scenes that these people have to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy. You've got to learn how to juggle and juggle right, and what's the most important thing to deal with right now. Picking your priorities. You got the people above you saying work them harder, make them more productive, and you got some people out here that are just dragging, but they just keep pushing themselves to keep going. Like, I'm not going to tell them they got to be more productive.
Yeah.
So I didn't do very well in those positions.
Yeah.
I have a hard time being mean.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it ain't easy.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
I think in home health, though, out of all the positions that I've held, the hardest position is full-time RN case manager.
Yeah.
It is so involved. There's so much involved. And that's one of the big differences when we talked about the PT, RN start of care. You have to fully assess every single bodily system, all of their medications. But, PT, you still have to do the environment, and you got to list all the medications, stuff like that. And then if you're the case manager, which sometimes the PT is the case manager, but when you're the RN case manager, you're overseeing everybody that's touching that patient. And you're going in there and having to look and make sure that PT's doing the right thing, nursing's doing the right thing, OT's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And in my case, I was in a position where I didn't have any other RNs very often to help. So I ended up being on call a lot, and I ended up getting very sick and losing a lot of weight because it was just too much. Now, maybe if I would have been a 28-year-old, maybe I could have handled it better. I don't know, but not this old lady.
Yeah, and that's why we see, you feel like that's why we see a lot of turnover.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's a hard job. It's a hard job.
Yeah, it definitely seems very different than what like a full-time, PT is going to have to deal with. Just a lot more to juggle. Excuse me. And now a quick break to tell you about our sponsor. This episode of the Senior Rehab Podcast is sponsored by Health IQ. I mentioned before that Health IQ is a special rate life insurance company for health-conscious people like you and me. They have a unique mortality model on health-conscious people that allows them to secure lower rates based on actual data. You can think of it like good driver savings on auto insurance. They also have a unique underwriting process where instead of using common measurements like BMI, they use waist-to-hip ratios, cholesterol calculations, and much more to demonstrate a more accurate view of someone's health. So if you're in the market for life insurance to protect your family and have a little bit of peace of mind, I highly encourage you to go to healthiq.com/SRP to get your free quote and help support the show. Thanks. Okay, so Nicole Nexon, she's a game changer, a Senior Rehab Project Game Changers. She says, how can we bridge the nursing versus rehab gap I see popping up in facilities? Both fields are important. What's with competition? So I think, if I recall, she's in a skilled nursing facility. So I don't know, have you experienced kind of competition between nursing and PT? And I think what may be part of it is maybe time, scheduling, like things like that where she is. But I wonder if you've experienced kind of that competition between the two.
Not really a competition, more like I see the nursing department hesitant to get people up and out of bed. They want to wait for therapy to do it. And then, the therapists have to juggle everything around. And I don't think it's right. It's just not right. I think the nurses need to be more open to listening to what the therapists have to say about how I want to show you how it's easier to transfer Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
This is an easier way to transfer him. So when you got to transfer him tonight and I'm not here, you'll know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I found a good way to transfer him where you won't get hurt. And reinforce, drive it home that you can educate them too. Every patient is different. And how you handle them is different. But, like when I've done training on transfer training with nurses and stuff, I go through the scenarios of what happens if it goes wrong. It's like, okay, now let's say you've got one cheek on the bed and it's sliding off. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
That's what I teach in my transfer training classes is what to do if it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because
That's
most
a good
times
point.
it does, And when I've done that with nurses, I feel like I built a better relationship with them.
Yeah.
They would then come and ask me and say, I'm having a hard time with this one. Can you show me how to do this? As they got to know me, they didn't feel so, I don't know what the word is, but I found a cool way to transfer Mr. Jones. Makes it a lot easier, and approached it like that and start building those relationships. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And there's been a few people that are in this group that have done nursing-driven mobility programs. So they have been able to get kind of a regular schedule of the nurses getting patients up, sitting up, walking if they're able to.
Yeah.
And Rachel Wald-Mao is one of them down at Grady in Atlanta, and I forget the numbers, but reduced the amount of falls in a very, very significant manner. I'm not going to guess what the number was, but it was crazy. Just what she was able to do just by getting nursing involved and selling it to them and getting them, to see value in it.
I had one nursing, I had a clinical instructor that said, if every patient in the hospital with diabetes that was able to walk, if nursing took them for a nice long walk twice a day, they would need less insulin. Their diabetes would improve because they were get in the habit of getting that activity. And I had an interesting, I could never figure out why people would not exercise a patient if their blood sugar was 300. And because actually the exercise makes it go down. And I actually proved this a few months ago. I had somebody out in Georgetown, had a knee replacement, had diabetes, and checked his blood sugar, and it was like 268 or 278. He goes, "Oh, that's really high. I don't know if I should do this." And I said, "Well, usually exercise brings it down." So I said, "Let's do a test. We'll go we'll go outside, go for a long walk, come back and check it again." And we checked it again. It was like 170.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that proved that exercise makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
With diabetes. But people don't think like that.
Yeah.
Nurses tend to think, oh no, their sugar's in the 300s. We need to get them some insulin and don't move them.
Right.
Yes, move them. They won't need as much insulin.
Oh, that's funny. Lucinda's watching.
Hey, Lucinda.
Lucinda's a coworker. Awesome. Yay. Hey, Lucinda. I'll see you tomorrow at the chili cook-off, Lucinda.
Yay.
Okay, so Ravi Lester says, what information do the RNs want communicated directly from PTs, PTAs? So we talked about how, from the PT-PTA standpoint, when nurses need to be brought in, but what if you put your nursing hat on, what do you want to make sure that I or PTA communicates to you when we're working with someone?
Change in condition, change in medication. If anything starts going wrong, and it's also nice to hear that somebody's doing a lot better, but mainly that they need to get right there. If there's a change in condition or a change in medication, they need to get out there quick. The nurse needs to be there.
So let's say this happens tomorrow when I have a few patients I've got to see. Do you prefer that in email, text, or call?
Email.
Email. All right. I'm kidding. All right. Hannah Holt asked another question. What are your thoughts on PTs doing Oasis starter cares? Some RNs do not feel PTs have the scope to perform.
That's not true.
Yeah?
No. I think any nurse that feels like a PT can't perform a PT starter care doesn't know what a PT starter care is because it's set up for a physical therapist to do, and there's everything on there is in your scope. Now, I don't think a PT needs to do an RN starter care, and I'd like to, and RNs would love to do a PT starter care because it's so much less. There's so much that, and maybe that's what they think. Maybe the RNs are thinking that the PT starter care has the same questions. And that maybe they're thinking, well, they don't know how to instruct them in their insulin or whatever. I don't know. But I think that's totally wrong. I think PTs are perfectly capable of doing a PT starter care. No problem. No problem.
And I wonder too the difference between the PTs with different degrees, because in the DPT education, you're getting more kind of medical systems. Not to say the previous degrees didn't have that, but one of the big goals of that DPT was to does this person need to see a physician or not? Big red flags and just
Yeah.
kind of that more medical side of things.
Yeah.
So I wonder how that changes.
Yeah.
If it does at all. I don't know. I'm not
I
saying
wouldn't-
that to offend
yeah.
any
No, I
other,
wouldn't think
other
it
PTs,
would,
but-
because anybody who's a bachelor or a master's degree PT has been around a long time.
right. Yeah, that's
So.
true. Yeah.
They
That's
got the
true.
experience side of it.
And I think too, if you're listening or watching, if you're a home health clinician, typically we all have access to the other person's documentation.
Yes.
And I'm guilty of this. I've never went through each page of a nursing starter care. I just go right to what the things that I want to know.
Right.
I look at the
Right.
moo questions, I find their tug score, and then I'm
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
But I've never gone through each, of the,
Each part.
I don't know how many pages ours, 30, 40 some.
I think so.
Ours,
Yours is, I think,
but I've never went through
24.
it, and that would be helpful to understand.
Yeah.
Especially when I see that starter care is still pending when I'm going to do my PT eval and I'm going in blind.
Yeah.
Then I'll maybe have some sympathy
Yeah.
for them to know what they actually are going through.
Yeah. Yeah, and in that case, if they don't have the documentation done, they're probably overloaded and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And you might just want to give them a quick call and say, "Hey, what do I need to know about this person? I'm going to see them. Or I understand you don't got your stuff done yet. I just need a quick heads up before I walk in the door."
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so that's it for the listener questions.
All right.
So those are pretty good. So what? Hold on. Lucinda said, "I like looking at the nursing wound / post-op info on the Oasis if they have that." I need to do that, Lucinda. So, in our current job, the landscape of home health is changing. There's all these bundled programs, and we're tracking all these different things.
Different insurance.
Yeah.
Is the problem.
So what are you excited about, and what are you pessimistic about or upset about right now in kind of our world that we're in?
Well, I'm most upset about what's going on with healthcare insurance. Sometimes to the point of where I get very anxious for a minute.
Yeah. Jeff's watching.
Yeah.
Don't screw up. Don't say anything you're not supposed to
boss
say.
is watching. Uh-oh.
We were just talking about our
Yeah,
leadership.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, I don't text you. I just don't put their name.
Right. We're good. HIPAA.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
Health insurance. You're
Health
nervous
insurance.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm really scared about that. I even saw at one point, and because part of it is because I'm seeing my patients suffer, and another part of it I'm thinking of myself as I get older. And I saw one time where, now where I wouldn't have had before, I wouldn't have had to pay for my Medicare because I already paid for it because I worked and put the money in, changing to where you still have a monthly premium to pay. And where that monthly premium was going to be $140 a month for me, by time I reach retirement age, it's supposed to go up to $4,600 a month, which ain't gonna happen because I don't got it, and I ain't gonna have
Where
it
did
then
you
either.
hear
It was
those
some
numbers?
news thing where they were
Okay.
talking about it,
Okay.
So put a little fear in me.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of our patients struggling. It's like the insurance. There's so much more types and insurance companies, and it just varies so much on what and how much they cover that it keeps you pretty well confused. And then when you try to go get something, it's like, oh no, but you gotta pay 80%. The insurance is only paying 20.
Right.
Things like that. So I really worry about that.
Yeah.
Patients, they can't get medicine because they don't have enough money and they don't have enough resources. And our social workers do what they can, but you can't get blood from a turnip.
Right.
And sometimes they've run out. Some things will only help for a month. They'll pay your electric bill for a month. What are you going to do next month?
You can't get blood from a turnip.
That's right.
I love that.
Oh, that's an oldie.
I'm gonna add that one to
That's
my
a oldie.
repertoire. How have you seen insurance impact care in your career?
Well, just most of it most recently with so much more where you have to get pre-authorization and you only get authorized for 4 visits at a time. And then you've got to do the reassessment before you get the okay and send it in before you get the okay to do the rest of your visits. And there's just so much more labor involved that's to me unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, when I was working, when PPS first came in, I was working in a nursing home, and I had a little lady that was about 100 years old, maybe 102 or something. And in the nursing home, it was four beds, 4 women together, and they shared one bathroom. And she could transfer herself from the toilet to the wheelchair back and forth without any help. But she couldn't walk. But she could do that. Well, I think the little lady before her had dribbled a little on the floor, and she, of course, didn't see it. And so when she went to transfer, she slid and fell and broke her hip. Well, when PPS had come in right at that time, I was told I could only work with her for 15 minutes a day. Well, it took 15 minutes to get her sitting on the side of the bed, so I had to do some therapy and get her back in bed positioned right for free.
Yeah.
And I said, trying to kill off all the old people. Oh, I was so mad. I was so mad.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what, was super frustrating in outpatient ortho. I mean, it's the same crap.
The caps
and getting authorization, having to do this form and that form and faxing it and then getting returned and having to argue with someone about
they deny it. And
why you need X amount of visits. And now that's our world in home health, it seems.
Yeah. And that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's what I dislike about it the most. And you were talking about, I think before we got on here, about what doctors think of therapists. And I was also married to an ER doctor at one time.
They're the worst.
He was very good. He was a very good doctor. And he was very good to his patients. He was very kind and compassionate with patients. Very smart man. But he told me when we first started dating, he said, I had no idea what you do in these homes. When I was in school, they told us, home health, don't worry about that. They don't do anything anyway. Those are where the old ones go to retire. That kind of thing. And I'm like, no, you're on your own. You gotta be everything that patient needs in that moment. And you don't have, the lab to come over here and take blood for you. If you're the nurse, you got to get it. I mean, just to me, home health is, you've got to be on your game to do home health, to walk into this home of a stranger and try to get an old person to exercise who never exercised in their life and now they're hurt. Right. And you're trying to get them to exercise. I mean, you got to have some skill to get that to work.
That's the truth. That's one thing. The medical school or medical training exposure to physical therapy is, next to none. I mean, it's almost embarrassing. My wife has some horror stories of some comments that her physician colleagues made about just their ignorance about what we do in the PT world, and vice versa too. We don't have a very good idea of what physicians go through, or nurses, or PT. I mean, it kind of goes across every discipline. So insurance sucks in some ways. What are you excited about?
I'm excited about, I just recently became excited. First of all, when I came to work for Gentiva, which is now Kindred, they had such a great program with the Safe Strides program. I think part of reason why I became an RN was I felt kind of stagnant as a PTA. I think I lost some of my tools along the way, and it'd become kind of stagnant. Early on in my career, I was going to this continuing education, I was involved and doing all this stuff. And then later in my career in home health, people weren't really talking to each other, and I was on my own. And if I asked a question, I kind of got reaction like, you're stupid for asking the question, and just didn't have that support. And when I came on to Kindred and working and getting in the Safe Stride program, I got all these extra tools and new tools. That excited me. Then you came and you inspired me. And how you inspired me was, I've always thought of the elderly as fragile. You changed my mind. And that has excited me, and it's really helped a lot of my patients because I push them harder
in
than I would have. I push them a lot harder than I would have because of you, and I see so much better outcomes. And I think I'm less fearful because I am an RN now. And I'm pushing the COPD and the CHF patient, because I have a better understanding of those disease processes. I'm not as nervous about pushing them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I can monitor them very well.
Yeah, I think I don't have that nursing background. I think one thing that got me thinking different was my wife. Honestly, I need to tell her this because I never said this, but I would tell her about patients, vital signs, for example, or yeah, like vital signs. That's mainly what I would talk about, and I would say, yeah, like their blood pressure. I mean, it was like 165 over 92, and I got this like really concerned look on my face, and she's just like, that's great.
Yeah.
And just to like yes, it's not good to have that blood pressure
Yeah.
for a long period of time, but in school it's like hypertension,
Yeah.
160 over 9 or 140 over 9. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh crap,
Yeah.
the red flags are going, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get this person to the emergency department, all this stuff. But then to see, like the other night, my wife was, someone came in, it was about 236 over 120, no symptoms. They were doing just fine.
Yeah.
Granted, like, it's not safe, but just,
Yeah.
I guess it made me realize, like, wow, like the body is so resilient.
It is.
There's people living life with super high blood pressures, with O2 sats, down in the 60s and 70s, and they can't even tell the difference. Like, I'm not saying those things are good per se. I don't
Yeah.
want to, like,
You want
be
to help
nonchalant
them
about
get
it.
that a little.
Yeah, but just not
more
to
under
freak
control.
out when we see that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. This could be coming across very irresponsibly, but yeah, the human body's super resilient, and I think the nursing background, or like my wife, seeing people on the edge of existence and just seeing what the body can handle.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time in physical therapy, we are not pushing them to that barrier whatsoever. I mean, I don't want to make absolute statements, but
Yeah.
so yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was that
No,
too?
no.
Was that bad to say?
Well, you're saying, not to get all anxious over something that's, maybe a borderline problem that you need
Yeah.
to, that, if I've got my patient's blood pressure is 160 over 92, first thing I'm going to ask him, oh, is this usually your blood pressure?
Yeah.
And if they say, no, that's a lot higher than usual. Well, do you have a headache?
Yeah.
And while I'm asking them questions, I'm looking at their medicines.
Yeah.
I'm sitting
Yeah.
there looking at their medicine, and I'm going, okay, you are only on one blood pressure medicine. How long have you been taking this at this dose?
Mm.
And that's where the RN part of me comes in.
Right. And then you're like,
and I'm
okay,
like, okay,
physician.
yeah. So we're going to watch this, and if this continues to be a problem, we're going to call the doctor. He might want to up this medicine or add a new one.
Yeah. Right.
In the meantime, let's talk about not eating a lot of salt, and you do that education in that moment because that's what brought it up. The blood pressure was high. Okay, we'll talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So Safe Strides has you excited.
Yeah.
And the new cardiac program
Yeah.
coming out. So we're getting like all
Yeah.
kinds of tools in our toolbox to be working
Yeah.
with these different types of people. One thing that has me excited, which I don't see this in the immediate future, but the ability to leverage technology or like wearable tech to monitor patients, like their activity.
Like have a patient wear a Fitbit, that
Something
kind of thing.
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I know there are home healthcare companies that are already doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time before we're able to, and even in our, start of care welcome packet, have a little activity tracker,
Yeah.
the bracelet that they put on.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that costs money, but
Yeah.
it's going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Oh yeah, it already has gotten cheaper
Yeah.
and cheaper.
So, all right, well, let's wrap things
good
up.
idea.
So, let's. I'm just going to ask you my favorite question. So,
Okay.
let's say we're at CSM, the Combined Sections meeting. So, it's in New Orleans this year.
Nolans.
Full room, geriatric clinicians, people that work with older adults, whatever the setting. You have their attention. So, you, as Lora Miller, the PTA, RN, with all this experience, what would you want them to know? And you can repeat something you've already said, but what do you want to make sure they walk away knowing?
Listen to your patient. They are a wealth of, I don't want to necessarily say knowledge, of insight on them, on that patient.
Yeah.
Listen to your patient. If I walk in and I've got, as Lee used to call it, the bubble, you got this bubble of what you're really thinking about,
Yeah.
something that's on your mind that you're worried about while you're in doing this other activity. If I'm walking in there thinking about something else or thinking about, I do I'll like go over in my mind what I would like to do with this person when I see them today. and then you walk in and they're going, oh, I can't, I hurt so bad.
Yeah.
I can, like, okay, well, I guess we're not doing that today.
Yeah.
But we can do this, but I think listening to your patient, even when they're not talking about physical therapy kind of things or their body, listen to them, because you get great insight on how they live their life when you're not there, which I think really helps you do a better job with that patient, because our job in home health is to combine what they need with where they're at. So, instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to have you go do these exercises on the bed, you're going to do blah, 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 say, do things like we had that one lady, she had dementia really bad and she didn't want to exercise, but we played musical chairs.
Yeah.
So, you go sit in this chair. Oh, and she forgot that she just sat over there. So now you say, oh, let's go sit over here.
All right.
I mean, you got to be creative
Yeah.
but listen to your patients and really get to know them. And then if you do that, you'll know how to educate them.
Yeah.
They'll buy in better.
That's the truth. And all of our patients would echo that you do an awesome job of that. That's been the consistent comments, like Lora cares, because a lot of our patients have had home health several times, and what they're used to is the 15-minute visit,
right?
Vitals, and then I'm typing, typing on the computer, and then I'm out.
Kick
get
your legs,
you to sign.
take a walk, and sign it. And
I just
I'm
got
gone.
my, X number of dollars for this visit, and then
Yeah.
I'm out. But you listen, and they know that. So I'm sure they tell you that, but I'm gonna tell you that too.
Oh, okay. They like you a lot too. You listen to them.
I trick them. I bring candy. Have they told you that? I give cookies to all of our
No.
patients. So
No, I
I'm just
didn't know.
kidding. I'm just kidding. All right.
Sugar-free ones to the diabetics.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Well, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
over. We're at my house right now for the podcast listeners
Yeah.
hanging out. So if you all have questions for Lora, get in the Facebook group. So in the Senior Rehab Project Facebook group, which
Yeah.
you can go to seniorrehabproject.com/join, you can click a link, put your email in, and you'll get access to that group. And then you could ask her a question directly and have all other super smart people chime in.
Yeah.
That's what's really cool.
That's what's nice. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's. I love this group, and I tell the patients about that you do this, and that your motto is you have the hashtag old does not equal weak, and they like, really?
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's cool.
They like that.
Yeah, it is something wild. I mean, we've got, you could ask a question, and then like Meg Lowry from Australia is going to chime in, and then Troy, I think he's in North Carolina, leading in home health, and then you've got like Dale Avers of all people chime in on, like it's insane. So
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you started this.
yeah, it's cool. I think it's just easy. The Facebook's easy. Everyone's on it, and we're in a very isolated setting. So, and I'd say it's only for home health, but it's for anyone working with older adults. So, all right. So I don't think we mentioned any links. So yeah, I was thinking the show notes, but don't worry about that. Get in the Facebook group, ask Lora a question, but listen to your patients.
Yes.
Communicate with your PTAs and your RNs. Get to know them, and that's going to help your work life, but then also the quality of our care.
We're all detectives.
Ooh,
We are all detectives. When you start walking up to that house, you instantly are becoming a detective. And you're looking at, okay, what's their entryway? How's their living situation? How are they sitting? Do you got a diabetic that's sitting there with 3 bags of Snickers bars? Be the detective about the surroundings too.
Yeah, that's a good point. So lots of nuggets of wisdom here. So, all right, Laura, thank you.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.